Welcome in to the One South Coast Chamber podcast, the official podcast to the One South Coast Chamber, serving the business communities of southeastern Massachusetts. Today, I'm your host, Ian Trombley, Vice President of Public Policy, and today we're doing a Policy Pulse edition, an edition where we discuss different public policies and the impacts they are having on the business community here in southeastern Massachusetts. So for today's episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by State Representative Chris Markey. Chris represents the 9th Bristol District, which includes the towns of Dartmouth and a large portion of the north end of New Bedford. I was looking this morning at the district map, and I was actually stunned at how much geographic area of New Bedford you actually cover.
It's a huge area, but it includes the industrial park, so there's not a big population, and it also includes the airport.
Okay,
and then the industrial area around the airport.
Right,
so there's not a lot
of voters or constituents in that area,
yes.
but it is a large area regardless. So, Chris, you're in your 16th year and final year as a state representative. You're going to be taking the leap. You're running for district attorney of Bristol County. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me, Ian. I appreciate it.
No, happy to have you. So I've got a lot that we want to kind of go over today because you're in a unique position in your career, reflecting back on your time in the legislature and what you want to do as district attorney. So we'll jump right in, and I figured we'd go through chronological order. Like 16 years ago, where were you? What were you thinking? Why did you want to run for state representative?
Well, I'll tell you how it all happened.
All right.
Never wanted to be state rep as like someone to get involved in politics. I had been in the DA's office. If you told me 20 years ago, that's the job I wanted to stay in forever. Yep. I wanted to be an assistant DA forever. Just life didn't work out that way. And I was in private practice, and my daughter was playing basketball at the middle school in Dartmouth, and I was sitting next to John Quinn, who was the sitting rep, and he was running for sheriff, so he was leaving, and there was an open seat. And I said to him, "Hey, who's running for your seat?" And he named me the two Democratic people. And I said, can anyone of them beat the selectman who was running, who was a Republican?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I don't think they can." So I said, "Hey, what do you want? Should I try it?" And he goes, "Yeah, you should try it." I said, "Yeah, can I win?" And he said, "Yeah, you can win." And then I said, "Can I keep my law practice?" And he said, "Yes, a lot of guys do it. In fact, it's beneficial to everybody up there to have someone who knows the stuff and practices." And I said, "How much does it pay?" And he told me. I said, "All right, I'll call you back by noon tomorrow." And that was a Friday night. I went home. My wife was sitting watching TV. I said, "Hey, I bumped into John Quinn at the basketball game." I asked him about who was running for a seat, and he said these two guys, and he didn't think either of them could beat the Republican. And I said, "Do you think I should run?" And he said, "Yes." And so my wife goes, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "I don't know. I'm asking you. What do you think?" And she said, "Can you keep your law practice?" And then she said, "How much does it pay? And can you win?"
Yep.
The same three questions I asked him. So at that point, she gave the go-ahead, and I called Quinn at noon the next day, and I said, "Listen, I need 3 people. I got a call. Give me 10 people, because I'm going to ask those 10 people 3 people." So that afternoon, I spent on the phone calling 10 people in Dartmouth, telling them I was going to run. They were very supportive, and that's how I got into it. I mean, I've lived, I think, because of my parents, a life of public service.
Right.
I was in the DA's office. I fell in love with it as a victim witness advocate. I never expected to do it, but it just happened that way. I realized that's kind of how my brain works.
Yeah.
So I did that. I loved it. My dad was obviously in public service. My mom was a public school teacher and then a private school teacher. And that's kind of...
At the time, was there an issue or anything that you were kind of interested in specifically, or was it just, I think I can serve this community well, and I want to...
I wouldn't say I had a specific issue.
Yeah.
I've never been like one issue oriented.
Right.
I do think that the job requires people who actually care about the people and not necessarily about positions.
Mm-hmm.
I never sought any union endorsements or anything like that. I was always someone who I want the endorsement of the people.
Yeah.
But I can remember my my stump speech was always about the four responsibilities of government is one is infrastructure. If we have good infrastructure, good roadways, good bridges, good transportation,
Mm-hmm.
good water supply, then people will invest in our community and private investments
Right.
will come. And then if you're going to have good private economic investment, we're going to need a good workforce. So we need to focus on education. So
Yep.
number 2 is make sure our education is really good. And then 3 is obviously if you're going to have education, you're going to have families grow up there and you want public safety. So number 3 would be public safety.
Right.
And then finally, healthcare. I thought that if you want a workforce, you want them healthy and you want to make sure that you have the opportunities to
Right.
have doctors available and all of that in the area. So I kept saying that, and there was a common sense approach to it, not really taking positions of any of the unions or taking positions of any of the activists,
Yep.
as they call them, or advocates,
Right.
but just trying to tell people, hey, listen, I'm going to balance out everything and try to do the right thing for
Yeah.
the right reasons.
Yeah. What would you say, 16 years now, was some of your favorite parts of being a legislator and some of the pain points, the most frustrating parts?
It's funny. I think there are people who excel at it and they're good at kind of, I don't want to call it manipulating,
Yeah, yeah,
motivating
right.
people to do
Yep.
things and all of that. I'm one like, hey, this is the right thing to do. Why don't we do it
Yeah.
and just get it done?
Yep.
So it's more of the decision. And there's things that I know I've done that upset people, but I can make a decision and I can take the consequences of those
Yeah.
decisions. So I would think I'm more of an executive than I am a legislator
Yeah.
in that regard. But the opportunities it gave me were tremendous. I mean, I got to meet a bunch of people that
Yeah.
I really like. Everyone comes from a diverse background, diverse beliefs, and they all have like real special knowledge in certain things. So
Yeah.
I learned a ton. And I think they learned a ton from my experiences doing criminal justice. I was really involved in the criminal justice reform stuff. My first term, I just told this story the other day, is my first term. It's November. We're doing this bill about 3 strikes and you're out on criminal justice.
Okay.
That you get 3 felonies, that you've gone to prison for 3 years or more. On your third one, you're out. You get the maximum sentence. There was a big concern from the Latino Black Caucus that, hey, this is going to be disproportionately affecting the minority community, and they were looking for an answer to resolve that.
Yep.
Because these people are going to go to jail for life.
Yeah. Right.
And so they were looking for an answer. The head of judiciary came in and asked me a couple questions, and I said, oh, this is an answer. This is a specific statute for first-degree murder. That is direct appeal to the SJC. They look at the entire record. They can even look at the sentence. If they think it's unjust, we can change it on an appeal, and it doesn't have to be a preserved objection like a normal appeal would be. So he said, all right, that sounds good. So he went back into the speaker's office. He tried to explain it, apparently didn't explain it perfectly, and they had a lot of questions. So he just said, go get Markey and have him come in. So I'm sitting there with like 3 other freshman reps, my buddies, called the boys, and we're sitting outside. I think we're eating a sandwich, and the chairman comes and says, hey, the speaker wants to see you. So I'm like, oh. And so I go in, and the whole staff is there. There's like 12 people sitting around. They're on the chairs and the couch and the table. They got one folding chair for me. And they go, okay, yeah, here, you got an answer. Now, I'd only been there for like 10 months.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, this is the answer. I said, this is what this statute does. All you got to do is add this into that section of the legislature, section of the general laws, then you're all set.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it. They ended up doing it. And that's when I gave my first speech, too.
Yeah. Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
So I do ask because I've always thought you have a unique approach. You're a very reasonable individual, almost too reasonable to be a legislator, and I can see you approach things without a political lens. With just your personal experience, you ask good questions and you say, is that right or wrong? That doesn't make sense. Let's fix that. And I was suspecting you might have some frustration with the legislative process not being overly reasonable sometimes.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's 160 different people in the House, 40 more
Yep.
and bigger egos in the Senate. Which I'll make fun of Roderick's and Montigny on that one, but
They could take it.
well deserved though for Mike and Mark. They've been there a long time and they know what they're doing.
Yep.
And they get stuff done. But the idea being that you got to corral all these people with totally different beliefs.
Right.
And so you have to make a lot of compromises.
Yeah.
And sometimes I cannot totally comprehend what is going on in Somerville or Cambridge.
Right.
Compared to what's happening in New Bedford or on the practical street level of what's going on in Fall River.
Yeah.
People just don't understand it.
Yeah.
I grew up in New Bedford. I get it.
Yeah.
And I work in New Bedford. I'm downtown all the time. At Fall River, New Bedford, you could say is the same.
Yeah.
In that respect.
Right. Right.
So you get an understanding of the people, and it is frustrating sometimes to have those compromises or to not be able to do something because you're not the right person.
Yeah.
To be asking for it.
Right.
If someone else asks for it, you might get it.
Yeah.
But I might not be the right person to ask for it. So that was a bit frustrating.
Yeah. So you are still our, state representative. We had our legislative luncheon a week ago today, and you were asked about some health care and insurance challenges. And I thought you gave a great answer, so I wanted to pose it to you again today for those who weren't able to attend. Employers, employees pay a lot in premiums every year. Then when you need the care or you want to make an appointment with a primary care, your primary care, retires, you can't get in for months. You end up going to the ED, which ends up costing more. And it's a frustrating system, right, in general, and everybody's pointing their fingers at each other on what's causing it. But I thought you gave a really interesting, and you're on healthcare finance, right?
I am.
And I just thought you gave a great perspective the other day.
So, yeah. So essentially, this is complex. There's no real simple answer to this, and it needs a little bit of an explanation as to how we got here. First off, people complain about our healthcare system. It's still the best in the world.
Right.
Generally speaking, are there things we could do better? Yes. There are other things that other countries do better. Mm-hmm. But as a whole, we have the best research, we have the best technology, we have the best doctors, we have the best hospitals. Mm-hmm. So the idea that we are doing things that cutting edge stuff that are saving people's lives every day, more so than in any other country. So having an understanding of that, you gotta put everything in perspective. Our current problem is now, and again, this all shifts, right? Like they're business people, medical people, people who own all the hospitals, they're business people. They got to make sure they keep their people employed. They can pay for their supplies, that they can, pay for the food, everything. And you want the best doctors, and it's competitive. Even if it's a nonprofit, you're always competitive when you do these things. Yep. So in our current system, the people who are rewarded the most are people who work in oncology, because a lot of oncology now is medicines, which chemo, which can be injected. In the margins for chemo and for any of the treatments from cancer have huge margins. Yeah. And the hospitals make money. The treatment of those make money. Yep. Orthopedics, same thing. And again, people living longer, but their joints aren't. Right. So there's a big demand, and they're making a lot of money. People want to be comfortable, be able to walk. They want to be able to, have a new hip and a new knee and all this other stuff. Yep. So there's a huge margin there. Where there's not a huge margin, and that's where like a place like South Coast has a really tough time understanding our demographics down here. Right. Is psychiatry, emergency rooms, internal medicines, and diseases. Yep. And like diabetes, with that then spread out all these other problems for diabetes. Right. And it comes from obesity a lot of times and from other things. And so unhealthy people cause the cost to go up or cause more treatments. Yep. Unfortunately, the treatments that those people need, there's no real margin. So the business plan doesn't really work. So what can prevent people from getting diabetes or becoming obese in doing those things is going to your doctor every year.
Right.
Going and telling a doctor telling you, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that availability, you're not going to eat healthy. You're not going to, or at least be aware of it. You may
Right.
not eat healthy, but you're not going to be
Mhm.
aware of it. So what's happened is primary, and why is it? Well, primary care doctors, it's like a desert down in the South Coast. There, New Bedford, I think in proper New Bedford, I think there's only 2
Wow.
primary cares.
Yeah.
Most of them are in Dartmouth.
Yep.
I mean, which makes sense.
Yep.
Again, a business plan, you have everything in one area, and in Fons Connor Road seems to be the medical
Right. Yep,
area
that's
for
where
our
mine is.
community.
Yep.
But so there is not a lot of primary care. So you say, why aren't there a lot of primary care? There's no margin. There's not a lot of money to be made.
Yep.
And the regulations for that are a real pain in the tail for all of them.
Right.
So the pre-authorization requirements of going to your primary care to then get to an orthopedic who's going to make a lot more money off of it, right? Like that's what happens, but you got to go see them, and it's not an easy task to do. And then they got to fill out a ton of paperwork. So every time you go to see a doctor and you want to get another treatment, they're filling out more and more paper.
Right.
So for every 40 minutes they're meeting they're spending 20 minutes filling out paperwork. Yeah. So that is not why they went to medical school. Like I didn't go to law school just to sit. I'm not one to look at contracts.
Right. Right.
Doctor, I want to help people. I want to get involved in court.
Yep.
I want to do that. Same thing for docs. They want to see patients. They want to have a turnover. They want to do things and use their medicine knowledge to help people. I think that what happens is they get burnt out because of these regulations.
Yeah.
So they're not making the money because the margin isn't there, because insurance companies' reimbursements aren't there. The demand isn't like there for oncology or for orthopedic. They're not making the money. They got more paperwork to do than actually care. So they lose interest. So now there's this whole generation of people who are not involved in primary care. They're involved in these other ones where they can make some money. So what we need to do is like a kind of look at it in 3 phases: short term, long term, and midterm. In the short term, we need to change some of these regulations to make it more interesting for more patients can be seen by doctors, right? And make it more interesting for them, and they're motivated, and they won't leave. Right. And they'll stay the extra 3 or 4 years, maybe 10 years. Yeah. Then midterm is trying to get people who are in medical school focused on primary care. How do we do that? We do loan forgiveness, just as we do in law school at UMass. Right. We do a loan forgiveness for public service. Yep. And then on kind of the long term is trying to motivate younger people who are thinking are in high school, thinking about medical school, that get them focused on early on in a primary care facility. Yeah. Get them to actually work there, get them to see what they can do. Right. And understand the business part of it as well. And say, hey, this is where I want to go. Yeah. Yeah. And get the best and brightest to do that. And again, I think, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even in the 70s, people thought, take a house call for a doctor. Yeah. And the doctor could come in and kind of give you all the medicines, tell you what you needed to do. And I think that's the kind of the romantic idea of a primary care. Yeah. It's not like that. Right. It's not, it's not a trading or barter system where you can get some nice steaks for going in and doing a checkup. Right. It's actually, working more centralized, more business-like, and again, trying to remove those regulations can only help. Yeah, and it's interesting because primary care, you think about it with the work-life balance becoming more popular, the structure of a primary care, the idea of that sounds enticing. But as you're hearing and you talk to current primary people in the practice currently, you're after work, you're doing paperwork, you're doing reports, your nights, you're not spending them, with your kids or what you want, with however you want to spend it, right? So, and of course, the money side, I think, above all else, right? You got to have massive loans that you're going to want to pay back, and having a primary care is so important. It really is. You can start to diagnose issues before they start, Yeah, and then you hope that, I always say I got a brother-in-law who's in the medical world in Boston, and I always say, you guys should be down here. Like, you can bring your expertise as a research hospital. Yeah. I said, New Bedford and Fall River is a petri dish for all this stuff. Right. We've had bad environment. We've had pollution. We have all these things. Yeah. Then we have We don't have the best, highest educated people.
Right.
We don't have the best foods that are being introduced to them.
Yeah.
We can actually like use all of these things that cause a lot of these
Right.
illnesses, and you could actually research it and actually help everybody
Yeah.
by doing that.
Yeah.
But again, it's the margins, it's getting money and finding the people who can research these things.
Yeah, yeah. And while we're on the topic, before coming here, I was at Charlton. My dad had surgery this morning. Went very well. So I want to give South Coast a big shout out for providing great care, as they always do. So we're fortunate to have them. But going back to the business side of it, they're competing with Boston hospitals and Providence hospitals that have different models and, education schools and,
So that's one of the things I think South Coast has found its niche. It's found its way, and it stays. I hate that line of staying in its lane, but it understands who they are.
Yeah.
That's what I think when you say staying in your lane. I think like I understand who I am, what I can do, what I can't do, and I know my limitations, and I'm confident in the abilities I have, but I'm also not willing to try to take a risk on something that is not worthy of it.
Right.
And I think South Coast has done a very good job of understanding who they are.
Yep.
And I think if we had more bigger companies, elected officials who knew who they were, knew who their community was, we could focus on the highlight the goodness. I think there was some highlight I don't know if it was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or one of them, but there was some line about highlighting the things you do well.
Yeah.
I'll remember it at some point.
All right. So it's June already. We still have a few more months left of the legislative session. Is there anything that you would like to see done, or priorities that you would like to see done while you're in office?
Yeah. There's actually one thing that I'm kind of laser focused on right now is we're going to do an economic development bill.
Okay.
And part of it is this idea of low carbon fuel standards and credits for that.
Okay.
And those are standards that would be created by DOER, and they would say if you release more this X number of carbon over, you're going to be taxed on it as a company, and if you keep it below that, then you're going to get credits for it.
Okay.
And with those credits, you can actually sell them back to the company that's not doing well. The idea of it is that, again, if you talk to someone who's in business, there's a cost of doing business.
Right.
And energy costs are one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to always make things more efficient is what they want to do. And they balance out the investment in the capital to make it more efficient, and then also the cost of what it is now. And if we can invest and we can incentivize the behavior to get rid of the fossil fuels that they use and get cleaner energy and less carbon, what that would do is then they could invest into changing the way they manufacture it, doing different things.
Yep.
What does that mean? That means job, because they're investing in capital and they're doing things that are a little bit different.
Yeah.
That does that internally in our state. But what else does it do is it takes all the clean energy manufacturers around the country and it brings them to Massachusetts. And they say, hey, we're producing widgets with carbon free, and we're doing it carbon free, carbon neutral, however you want to call it. We get all these credits. So we're producing money from the product we make.
Yeah.
And we're also getting a revenue source through our credits. Mm. So that gives them an incentive to come to Mass. And what does that do? It lowers our carbon. They're producing, it creates jobs, and it allows the system to grow and get to the goals we want as a bridge from today to the 2040 or 2050 carbon neutral goals we have.
Interesting. And so taking an economic lens on this kind of energy issue and climate issue.
Yeah. But again, you have obstacles, right? Like the big environmental people don't like it because it still allows for fossil fuel. And I think they're quite frankly ignorant on the idea that it's not going to happen overnight. We don't just have an on-off switch. There needs to be an incentive to get to people to believe in it.
Right.
And our incentive in a capitalistic society is money. Yeah. And if you can get people to make money off of doing the right thing, they're going to do it.
Yep. Absolutely.
And in California, they've done it. Oregon, they've done it. Washington, they've done it. And they've seen an increase in economic development. New Mexico has done it, and New Mexico is one of the highest producers of fossil fuels in the country. But they have this low carbon fuel standards, and it's working to create lower carbon
Yep.
emissions. At the same time, it's creating job opportunities.
Interesting.
And what I've learned while doing all this is there's nothing east of the Mississippi. And New York is really tempted to do this. And New York has legislation that allows the regulators to jump on to doing something like this.
Okay.
They have a very expansive regulatory authority in New York.
Okay.
So New York may end up doing something
Okay,
in
and
the
they don't
next
have to go to
year.
the legislature.
And they don't have to go to the
okay.
legislature. So, but the obstacle is kind of the far environmental extremists who just think we can just shut the switch off, and that's going to be fine without any real long-term investments on it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. I think there's a lot of people who think it's a great idea. I'm just trying to push it as much as I can. It's a little bit out of my normal stuff.
I am surprised by the answer, but it makes a lot of sense.
But it's something that it was brought to my attention, and I started listening to it, and I was like, hey, I'm not known as a huge environmentalist, but I'm also not like oblivious to the fact that it's changing.
Right.
And I think this is it could create a great business plan for someone to invest in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. So moving on, you have plans, or you're running for the Bristol County District Attorney. Before we get into why, can you tell us, for those of us who haven't interacted with the DA, fortunately for the most part, right? Like, what does the DA do? We see him on the news sometimes, him or her on the news sometimes. What is the main role of the DA?
So the main role of the DA is it's statutorily created, and it's the attorney who represents the Commonwealth in every county, and they prosecute criminal cases and they represent the government. So when a criminal case happens, it's not a crime against the individual. It's actually a crime against the society or the state. Okay. So they are representatives of the state, and when someone commits a crime. Okay. They work hand in hand with the police. But more importantly, like the biggest thing is they are responsible. The DA himself is responsible for unattended deaths. That's a statutory authority. So if someone dies in their home, whether it be from anything from an overdose to a homicide, they attend. An industrial accident, they attend, just to make sure that, again, they work closely with the medical examiner's office, just to make sure that there was no foul play, and to help determine the cause of death. Okay.
So if there's a murder, for example, the police show up first, or, the first responders are there on scene. At what point does the DA's office actually get handed something or get involved, and when in the real world situation where there's a crime has happened, and it gets handed over?
Sure, immediately.
Immediately, okay.
Yeah, so they show up, there's a homicide, there's an unattended death. The local police call it the CPAC unit, the Bristol Detective Unit from the DA's office, and they're responsible for the investigation of it.
Okay, so they'll go right onto scene.
They'll
Someone
go right
from the office.
Just 2 days ago, there was a horrific homicide, 2 homicides in Fall River.
Right.
The DA's office, and I say the DA's office, the state police were there immediately. An on-call assistant DA goes out to the scene as well and helps with legal matters, assisting in search warrants, assisting in interviews, making sure the interviews are conducted in the proper fashion, making sure they're videotaped, all these things that can only help the case. Yeah. And it's not only building the case, it's also eliminating the defenses. So I assume this case that happened, this was horrific, that happened on Etna Street, would be a case that you show up at and you realize it's the horrific nature of it is bad. They caught the guy actually running away. Yeah. It's going to probably be a mental health case, meaning he's going to try, I would assume, to argue that he had a diminished capacity and that he's not guilty by reason of insanity. Yeah. But one of the defenses in that is not to appreciate the understanding of what you were doing. In this case, it's going to be tough for him to be able to do that because he's running from the scene.
Right.
Right. So he knows he did something wrong and he's running from the police. Mm-hmm. So the idea, if he stayed there over it and he's got the way he looked, apparently,
Yeah.
you could say, hey, maybe he's got a problem.
Right,
He's crazy and all of that. But he's trying to run and hide.
Yeah.
And so he's aware of what he did was wrong. So it's going to be a difficult case in that respect as a defense. But
Yep.
you want to make sure that's all documented. You want the video. You want the police report to be written to focus on that as a defense.
Right.
To eliminate that.
Anticipating what the defense might be.
So having all of that is really important.
Yeah.
And most importantly in this whole thing is also having the state police have a good relationship with the local police to work well together.
Yep.
It's really important. The local knowledge of Fall River is known by the detectives.
Yeah.
I remember a case distinctly where it was like around Thanksgiving, 1998. I mean, not Thanksgiving, New Year's. And we believe that the suspect had dumped something in the trash on 5th Street. And we're like, oh, we gotta figure out, when does the trash get picked up? And Tommy Chase, a detective, a legendary detective, yells out, oh, it's on Wednesdays. Like he knew exactly when the trash day was in that neighborhood, at what time of day it was going to be. That's the local knowledge that a good detective can bring to the state police to help them with the investigation.
Yeah. Interesting. So what do you think you could bring to the office of DA? Why are you running for district attorney?
First off, I love the job.
Yep.
I loved it. I would have stayed forever. I really enjoyed being an assistant DA. I think my experiences there taught me a lot.
Yep.
Now I think I'm even more well-balanced, having worked for 20 years as a defense attorney.
Yeah.
But really my story is I went to law school in the fall of 1990. At the same time, Paul Walsh had just got elected as the DA. He was coming in. I was going to law school at night. So I started working as a victim witness advocate in January of 1991. And I worked there full-time while I was going to law school part-time. And I was expecting when I went to law school, I'd work at my dad's law firm, which was real estate. Never expected to fall in love with the job. And then I did. I mean, it was exciting. There was stuff going on all the time. It was really interesting watching how the human nature of everything. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved. And then when I finished law school, I definitely wanted to be an assistant DA. I worked my way up over the next 12 years, and I was the second assistant, kind of doing the day-to-day operations of the office.
Yep.
And then in 2006, my boss lost. I knew I was going to get fired.
Yep.
So I started to look elsewhere, and I ended up hanging my own shingle up in New Bedford. And then I did that from 2007 to 2013. And then a woman I worked with in the DA's office, who was another miracle. She was looking to come back into practice from her medical stuff. And I said, just come with me. We'll do it. So for about 10 years, 8, 9 years, we were partners. And then she became a Rentham District Court clerk. And I went back to my own practice and been doing that while I was been the state rep. Done all types of criminal stuff. I feel like I'm prepared for it. My experiences make me unique to this.
Yeah.
I think the political side of things have been a blessing too, to understand some of the things and have an appreciation for a lot of how the criminal justice system can impact people on a very general way up at the legislature, but also handling cases as a defense attorney, very individual way. And then also how the criminal justice system can affect witnesses and victims when I was in the DA's office. So I really think that I'm prepared for it.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. I've tried cases to 12 people in the Superior Court dozens of times, done murder trials, done significant child abuse cases, habitual offender, career criminals.
Yeah. Well, it's a unique because you're a defense attorney. In the example you gave, I'm putting it all together right now. You're a defense attorney, and the example you provided earlier, as a prosecutor, the first thing you would do is think about what you would do. right? If you were going to be the defense attorney, which is an interesting. And I'm not familiar with this world. I work with on the legislative side of things, right? But that's an interesting take on like the first thing you would do is think about what would I do if I was a defense attorney on this case? Is that, would you say that's standard, or is that an unique thing that you might bring?
I think it comes. I think it comes because you have experience.
Yeah.
Right. Like where do we learn our best lessons from is when we messed up. Right. So I know like the mantra would be corroboration.
Yeah.
You corroborate everything you possibly can through independent evidence. Anytime you can get a video, anytime you can take a picture, anytime you can do any of that, you want that in your investigation. Why? Because you want to be able to show a photograph. Like, a patrolman goes to a domestic, there's a chair flipped over, there's a broken vase, there's spilt milk.
Yeah.
And you go, take a picture of it. Why? Well, because if you can show it, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Right.
And those types of things. So the technology these days is amazing, from phones to video cameras all over town.
Right.
So I think that's what you want to do is you want to corroborate everything to prove the elements of the crime.
Yep.
And you want to eliminate defenses all in the same investigation.
Yeah.
So you're not scrambling at the end and going, oh my God, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? And then it doesn't come out right because it's stuff you should have done before.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important part of that, is having an understanding of that and where your potential weaknesses are.
Yeah.
Is just as important to understand as it is to deal with what the strengths are.
Oh, it's interesting. I've fortunately never had to deal with attorney Markey, but I've spent a lot of time dealing, we've worked together for a long time on different legislative issues impacting, the business community. And I just want to point out, and as I alluded to earlier, your ability to listen, and thank you for that. Because most elected officials that we deal with, they listen, and while they're listening, they're preparing a response. What have they done for you? What's one of their goals? But you listen to really learn. You listen to form your own conclusions, and you're not thinking, what's my party going to think about this issue? For me, and I hope I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a compliment. So I want to thank you for that. I think you'll likely bring that kind of focus to the DA's office, and just thank you overall for your service for the last 16 years to the Commonwealth and the South Coast and Dartmouth and New Bedford. We're going to certainly miss you in the legislature, but however this plays out, I think you'll be great.
Well, hopefully it plays out the way I want it to play out, but I keep working at it and doing those things. But one of the beauties of you saying how I got into this and then like how I stayed, there's not many jobs. I got into it at 43 as state rep. There's not many jobs where you go to every day and you learn something new.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the beauty of this job, is that you get to learn and meet with different people with different perspectives, and you can understand. And I think I've become way more mature in that respect, that I understand other people's perspectives.
Right.
And it's made me I think, more thoughtful on those things. And I don't think a lot of people get that when they're 43 years old and, they're doing the grind and they're saying, oh my God, I'm 3 years away from tuitions. I got to do this. I got to do that. All that stuff matters, and which is important. But this gave me that opportunity to see all those things. And I think it is a great job. It's a great opportunity for anyone. The one thing I would say is, if you're going to run for a job like this, you got to have something to offer.
Yeah.
And I thought my advocacy skills was one of those things, and that's what I learned in the courtroom.
Yeah.
I was able to bring it to the State House.
Right.
But overall, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've had and the people trusting me to do it. And I'm certainly going to miss the people. I'm not going to miss the commute.
Yeah. No kidding.
But,
no kidding.
It's all good stuff. I'm grateful and blessed with the life I've had.
Yeah.
So I can't really complain.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, is there anywhere on socials, online, website that people can follow along with what you're up to?
Sure. So I got my campaign stuff, which is chrismarkeyda.com.
Okay.
You can go and look at my experience, my history, and you could sign up if you want to volunteer and do the donation stuff, which is, I would say, if there's one thing I could change about politics, it's that. It's the most awkward, uncomfortable thing to do is to ask people for money.
Yep.
Thankfully, I have a lot of great people around me who a lot of people owe favors to.
Yeah.
So they are willing to say, hey, listen, my brother or my friend is running for
Yep.
DA. And it makes my life a lot easier, but
Yeah.
I'm still making tons of phone calls asking people for money. I would change that.
Yeah.
I'm asking people essentially to say, hey, can you give me money so I can get a job that I want?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an awkward,
Absolutely.
but it is an essential part of it to get your message out and to be able to show people that, again, this thing comes down to experience. It's not party politics. It comes down to truly experience. And when I've had 35 years experience in the court system. Yeah. I know what I'm doing.
Right. I'm
still learning, but I still, generally speaking,
always still
I know
learning,
what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
I knew you as a youngster, though, like growing up as, I guess it's called adulting now.
Adulting,
Your first job as an intern with Representative Keating.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you worked for South Coast, and now you're doing this.
That's right. Yeah, you've been along with on the side of it.
No, but
it's journey, for sure.
That's the stuff I love.
Yep.
All the people that my aides have been in my office.
Yeah.
I love watching them grow and move on.
Yeah.
One of the things I insist on is making sure they go back for education. Yeah. Because I always tell them, I go, if you're still in the State House in 5 years, then I failed you. Yeah. So I've had incredible staff who's worked with me. Yeah. And I've been so very, very lucky. And I got an incredible young guy now, too. Yeah. So it's all good. That's great. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And, I appreciate you joining us today. So. Thanks, Ian. I appreciate it. Thanks for everything you do. Thank you for joining us today on the One South Coast Chamber Podcast's Policy Pulse Edition. Today's podcast is produced by Stephen Rice at Fall River Community Media. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, and leave a review of the show wherever you get your podcasts. Also, remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at One South Coast Chamber for daily updates, along with TikTok and YouTube for fun videos and content.